Eric Burgess here with Music Marketing TV, and today we're going to be looking at the oscillators inside of XILS Lab 4. It's assumed you already kind of know how the matrix works based on earlier videos, so patching will not be explained. In today's lesson, we are concerned with the three oscillators. So we have three of them, oscillator 1, 2, and 3. If we go to the other panel, they are the same, so if you know one, you know them both. And each one of them has some different peculiarities to them. So let's dive right in. Oscillator 1, let's call him Fred. Fred's an interesting guy. He has some unique abilities. For example, Fred has a sine wave. And right now, I know it looks like Fred has a triangle wave, but the thing is, Fred's a quirky guy, okay? This is actually a saw wave. So here's the sine waves. Here is the saw waves. And it sounds kind of high, but let me go ahead and just bring the shape down here. That's like what's really going on. And so there's this shape knob. Now, you might be wondering, why does it look like a triangle wave? I don't know. It's a good question, because it looks like a saw wave down here. And maybe one day it'll get updated. Now, these knobs are just volume. They're not that exciting. You have loud, you have not loud. Pretty self-explanatory. You control click to move it back to where it was. We also have up here the ability to tune in semitones or in frequency, so in our hertz value. And we notice our knobs here change, so we have this crazy number. It still says semitone. It should really say hertz though, because 523 semitones is really high. It's not that. It should say hertz here. But if we go over to the semitone, this is the semitone. We can see here we can go up to 12, so that is an octave higher, or we can go down 12, octave lower. So that's what the middle knob does. The outer one controls the actual octave you're playing. And what's nifty is we also have this low option. So if we want to use this to act as a control signal for something, we can. See, it's very, very low, very handy, especially for a saw wave. Here's the sine wave, super low. Just to give you a demo of what this can do for us, I'm going to output a a square wave, and I'm going to use the sine wave to amplitude modulate it. Amplitude modulation is just when you modulate the amplitude, you modulate the volume. So I'm going to send that over here to the level out on channel 1. I'm going to get rid of channel 2 here. And if I play this now, well, let me first play it with just the square wave. There's our square wave. Lovely, lovely. Let's go ahead and put in our sine wave to modulate it. It's very slow. And we can have control over that. We can slow it down. So we have a control signal. Sine waves are super important control signals, as are saw waves. So Fred's an important dude. You're going to want Fred in your contact list. He's a friend to call on a rainy day. Let's look at this shape knob here. So the shape knobs kind of does different things for different waveforms, right? You're not the same shape as me. Sometimes you're in shape, sometimes you're out of shape. The shape knob is the same way. It's not the same for every waveform. So up here, why is this copy not going away? There it is. So we have this sine wave, and its shape basically causes a type of distortion on the ends of the wave. Let me just show you, or let me hear you it. Oh, let's also turn the, let's get to a reasonable octave here. I'm just going to control click it, put it back at 0. Here we go. See, the end of the waveform has been sort of squished. This can be really helpful for getting different textures out. If you're running it through a distortion or something that's a rather aggressive process, changing the shape of the waveform can have big impacts. This is the frowny face version. So this is like Fred when he's sad, and this is like Fred when he's happy. So there you have it. That's what's going on there. Let's go ahead and look at the saw wave. The saw wave is an interesting one because it looks like the saw wave had a baby. So if I have the shape all the way down, we get just our saw wave as expected. But if I move this shape around, we will see a second tiny saw wave come out of it. They're like a little saw wave baby. We say, hey, oh, there it is. So this could be pretty handy to know about. Now you might be thinking, hey, this would be cool to modulate, to turn up and down slowly. And the answer is we can do that. So I'm going to show you how, because it's a little sneaky. There's one thing in the process. It's not the most intuitive thing in the world. So let's go ahead and let's do that. So we have our sawtooth wave coming out. We're going to go to the extended panel. And in the extended panel, there is an option to select a target. This isn't something we went into depth very much with the matrix video. So I'm going to explain it real quick. In our oscillators, there's one, so L is for the left panel, R is for the right panel. We're working with the left panel. And we see we have frequency, a sine wave level, and saw wave level. These all make sense. But then we have this one labeled width. And if you look over here, there's nothing here that's width. There's not a knob here for that. But there is a shape knob, and that's actually what this goes to. So you just got to kind of know, maybe one day the names will match up. But right now it's called width. And I'm going to take oscillator 3 since it's already on this panel, kind of convenient. It's already on low, and I'm going to use the triangle wave oscillator here to modulate Fred. So we're going to call this one Jackson. Jackson, oscillator 3, is good friends with Fred, but he's going to modulate him for us. So we're going to send the triangle wave there. So it's coming to the width, and we will now see it move around. Now I'm going to keep this. Let's move it as a frequency of, hey, this says hertz. That's interesting how this labeling thing is working out here. It's not a big deal. So we're at 3 hertz. Let's push our button. We can see it moving around, but not very much. I'm going to turn Jackson's triangle wave up and make him a bit quicker. And that can be a cool sound to have at your disposal, especially if we're playing like low notes. Gonna write some retro wave or something like that. That could be really cool. So anyways, that's Fred. That's an ability you have if you want to do that. Let's keep moving. Now the knobs are pretty much the same between them. We just really got to question the shape knob. And we also have here on oscillator 2, we'll call oscillator 2 Bertha. Bertha is like a cousin to Jackson, okay? Bertha and Jackson, they're like cousins. Fred's like a removed uncle. He's kind of weird. He's got this sine wave and this saw wave, but it looks like a triangle wave. So he's like a weird dude. These guys, guy and girl, they're cousins. They have the same waveforms. They have triangle waves. And for whatever reason, this one looks smaller than that one. This is an interesting thing to notice. And let's go ahead, let's listen to them here. So here is the square wave. Now the only difference between these two is if we were to put these on the same settings, so this is at 0, this is at 0, so we'd expect it to be like a similar frequency. But if we play the square wave here, now we'll go to oscillator 3. This one's an octave lower. So oscillator 3 is on the extended panel on purpose, because that's a typical thing to do. We like to use it as a modulation source. We can, of course, pump it up an octave. Actually, I think it's tuned down 2 octaves. Yeah, it's 2 octaves lower than the other. So it's great for modulation. A lot of wiggle room there. So we've got our square wave, our triangle wave. And let's check out the shape knob with these guys. So here is the shape knob affecting the triangle wave. Just gives it a different slope. And now, if you're a nerd, the slope can be really cool to affect because a lot of modulation processes are defined by a derivative. Maybe I'm nerding out too much here. Like frequency modulation is one such process. And being able to change the slope can have some cool impacts on effects like that. So let's look at the square wave. This one is also very important. The square wave can act as pulse width modulation, PWM. So we're changing the duty cycle of the square wave, and the shape knob here is no different, works the same way. So you already know, by knowing Bertha, you know Jackson. Isn't that great? Let's go ahead and set up a quick modulation. So I'm going to come into extended. This time I'm going to go to oscillators, and I want to go for the left panel, oscillator 2 width. So that's going to affect this shape knob. And I'm going to set oscillator 3 here to go on low, or -2. Actually, this might be too low. Well, let's see. And I'm going to take the triangle wave and modulate it again, just so we can hear some sweet PWM. Let's speed it up a touch. Go even lower. Oh yeah, now we're cooking with gas. Okay, so that's basically it. There's only one thing left that you might be wondering about, and that is here this synchro. So synchro is important because it allows us to phase sync the oscillators. So for example, if I have oscillator 2 coming out, and oscillator 1 coming out, and we've got the sawtooth and the square, and I play notes repeatedly, you notice that the attacks change. They're not consistent. Some of them get like a little cut out, some of them are brighter than others. This can be really cool. Sometimes you need them to be the same for various reasons. So you can do that by synchronizing them, which does a phase sync with another oscillator. So if I turn it on, I can phase sync with oscillator 1. I can't phase sync with oscillator 3, but oscillator 3 can phase sync with oscillator 2. So it's basically the same thing. And now it's consistent. If you have any questions about these things, let me know, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for future videos, and have a blessed day.